And as we get better and better at the technology, I want to ask Elise Botti, who is going to introduce the Chancellor, who is now going to have remarks after the Chancellor. Elise?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank goodness. I apologize. There were some there's some issues with the Zoom link, but I'm here now, and I'm sorry that I didn't have the chance to introduce the amazing Chancellor Nancy Cantor. I just want to say a couple of words about her since I didn't have the chance to do an official introduction. I knew of Nancy Cantor before I met Nancy Cantor through her work, her steadfast commitment to defending affirmative action in higher education at the University of Michigan. Her contributions were essential to the Grutter versus Bollinger case, which, as you all probably know, was the case that established the constitutionality of affirmative action in higher education and the diversity rationale. And when I came to Rutgers in 2013, and I learned that Nancy Cantor was going to be the Chancellor of Rutgers University, Newark, and I thought to myself, and I heard her quote Representative John Lewis. So it's appropriate, I think, to say this, that I knew that this was going to be a place for good trouble and necessary trouble. And I'm delighted to have been able to partner with Chancellor Cantor. I thank her for all of her support, the steadfastness of her vision, her expansive vision of the university as an instrument of justice and equity and fairness and inclusion, all the work that has been done around the Truth and Racial Healing and Transformation Commission, the anchor institution work, the connections that have been fostered with Newark. It is an amazing place to be. And I so value and I'm so grateful for her continuing leadership. I'll just say a brief word about MSP. I am chairing the MSP committee for the Newark campus of the law school. We have a terrific team with Mr. Affont, the acting dean of the MSP program, along with other faculty members, Lou Raveson, Esther Canty-Barnes, Beth Acevedo. And this is an important moment for MSP, especially in light of what's happening in this country. What I have to say, I am trying to be hopeful and optimistic about the direction that we will take and that we will persist through the challenges that we face, the challenges to our democracy, the challenges to justice in this time. But whatever happens, I am grateful for the MSP program. I'm grateful for the alumni and for the students, Shannon Cohol and all the amazing Rutgers Law students who are doing such a terrific job of sort of holding the banner of MSP and moving it forward. We are in a moment where we have to rebuild, but also strengthen and renew MSP. MSP has achieved amazing things, and as with any program, we want to make sure that it continues to be strong, that we continue to stay true to its promise. MSP is an essential part of the Rutgers Law School community, and I want to sort of close because I don't want to take up more airtime than I think I was allotted. But I think, and I heard Chancellor Cantor mention also the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And some of you may have seen the piece that Linda Greenhouse wrote in the New York Times about Justice Ginsburg and how she imagined the genius of her work was not only sort of her legal acumen and her brilliance on the court, but her ability to imagine a world that did not exist. And MSP was part of that project at its founding, was imagining a world that did not exist. And we have the opportunity to continue to strengthen it, to continue to make MSP the sort of centerpiece in many ways of Rutgers Law School, because it is about keeping the promise of America. And when I think of what America could be, I think of this MSP program. And I'm so grateful to see all of you here. I see some old friends in the Zoom windows. It's always dangerous to call people out, but I do see Wade Henderson. I had the chance to make some mischief with Wade when I was at the Legal Defense Fund. Grateful to see him and Oliver Quinn and Janice Robinson and all of you. So thank you, Charlie, for giving me the chance to speak, and welcome to this program.
Thank you, Professor Abadi. Professor John Dubin. Professor Dubin, are you with us?
I'm delighted to be in this company and to be here. Wade was a mentor of mine when I was at the ACLU way back when. And Janice Robinson and I came up together at Legal Aid Society, and she's always been a font of wisdom for me. So I'm delighted and honored to be here. I'm always honored to be at an MSP gathering as Associate Dean of Clinical Programs, a program that only exists because MSP students got together and organized and shut down the law school and demanded clinics. I'm reminded of the interrelationship of the program I direct and the MSP program, and the manifestation of that intersection, I think, finds resonance in the current acting dean of the MSP program, who's one of our top clinicians, Dean O'Font. It's also my pleasure to introduce our dean, David Lopez. I promised to be brief on that, and that seems to work for him, because I was the member of the Dean Search Committee who first introduced Dean Lopez to the entire Rutgers community of faculty and staff before anybody knew who he was. And I gave my introduction, and then shortly thereafter he was hired. So just saying, brief introductions, they work for him. So who is David Lopez? Let me introduce him to you all, although I know you've all had a chance to hear him and see him. Before coming to Rutgers, he was the longest serving tenured National General Counsel for the United States Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, having been nominated by President Obama and confirmed by the Senate. Yes, that same Senate you see now, they confirmed him twice to head this national agency's legal staff with 325 legal professionals and 15 regional offices around the country. In that time period, covering most of the Obama presidency, David extended the EEOC's work to interpret Title VII to address discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity as actionable sex discrimination. And by the way, that's an interpretation that was just vindicated this June by the Supreme Court in the Bostock trilogy of cases. He also extended the EEOC's work to the protection of immigrant workers from employment abuse and to religious discrimination against Muslim women based on appearance, such as from policies banning the wearing of headscarves, hijabs, in the workplace. In the past decade, the National Law Journal named David one of America's top outstanding general counsels. Hispanic Business Magazine named him, or put him on their list of 100 influentials in the Hispanic community. Diversity in the Bar named him a Latino luminary for his work as a civil rights lawyer and extraordinary administrator. And the National Arab American Anti-Discrimination Committee awarded him its Friend in Government Award. After leaving the EEOC, David went on to become the managing partner of the DC office of the national employment law firm Houghton and Golden, and he'd been teaching as an adjunct professor at both Harvard and Georgetown in classes on civil rights, also before coming to Rutgers. Moving back into his bio, before joining the EEOC, he was a trial attorney with the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department in their employment litigation section in Washington, D.C. He went on to become an EEOC trial attorney and supervisory attorney in the Phoenix office of the EEOC, where he worked for almost 25 years and had a stint as special assistant to the chairman before being appointed as general counsel. I mention all that to point out that he was the first EEOC field office trial attorney to ever eventually be appointed as the agency's general counsel. He worked his way up from the bottom to the top. He's not just a political appointee for this extremely important national position. He obtained his JD from Harvard Law School and vindicated his educational experience by having gone to the flagship state school in Arizona State, before going to Harvard. And he's lived in Oregon, Arizona, Boston, and DC before now coming to New Jersey. So since coming to Rutgers, he has been a very strong supporter of MSP and MSP's principles, the principles of inclusion and diversity underlying the program. He's applied those principles to his own shop. It's not just talk, it's action. He named 2 tenured women of color to serve as his vice dean and associate deans in one of his first acts. For the first time in our history, we have 2 tenured women of color in the top administration at the law school now. And he's reached out to MSP alums around the country and was about to launch a major program, an on-site Southern Civil Rights course and study tour, along with our MSP speaker from the 2019 MSP dinner, Victor McTeer, potentially aided in with additional MSP alums and civil rights giants, Vince Warren and Danita Judge, who are the executive director and associate director, respectively, of the Center for Constitutional Rights, and also MSP alums. All this before COVID got in the way this spring and put many of our best plans on hold. And he was not merely a supporter, but a major driving force in leading us to put out that powerful and controversial institutional anti-racism statement that unfortunately I just got on the call now, but I know my colleague, Professor Hyatt, was going to speak about it, as she was one of the co-drafters, spurred on by Dean Lopez. This is a statement addressing the highly public string of killings and assaults on Black lives and demonstrations in the street in opposition to systemic racial injustice that we saw late spring and much of the summer. I might add that this powerful institutional statement was opposed strongly by some in our midst as going too far. But Dean Lopez never wavered in his commitment to issuing a bold, far-reaching, and potentially controversial anti-racism statement and position, even in the face of internal and potential external backlash. Okay, I promised brevity, so let me finish up now and just say with further ado, since it worked for him to get hired, let it work for him for this function. I bring you Dean David Lopez, our Dean.
Thank you so much, John. And I do remember the very first visit to the Rutgers Newark campus and meeting with the faculty and meeting with Chancellor Cantor. And I've said many times, it was very much the experience of love at first sight, right? It was very much the experience of, I've known you forever. And yet I'm meeting you just now. And I think really at the core of that are the core values of this institution as reflected by this program. That I walked into an environment after a very long career where I've talked to so many of my family and so many of my friends of color, and they talk about the experience of marginalization and of voicelessness and the imposter syndrome. And I walk into this amazing campus. I remember first the MSP 50th anniversary, and then, well, first meeting all of you, and then the 50th anniversary. And I go through this experience of voice and hearing the voice of people and seeing people of color who have leadership roles, and seeing this sort of rich tapestry of a community that was something that I had never really experienced before in the same way. And to me, that was what was at the core of, you know, this love at first sight. I remember the first time I met Chancellor Cantor and like Professor Body, I knew who she was. You know, I knew who she was on paper, but when I met her in person, I'm like, really? There's a possibility that you could be my boss? Oh my God, what do I have to do that? And it was just sort of the tremendous experience to see her inspiring vision for this campus, and her leadership, and really the opportunity to be part of that really took me surprisingly very far afield of my native Arizona. And I find myself in Newark. And I remember one of the very first events we did was a celebration by many of the Latinx folks in the community. And, you know, I remember telling them that, you know, I never in a million years when I was in Phoenix or even in Washington, D.C., expected to be in Newark. And then here I was, you know, in Newark for a month, and I already felt at home and amongst family. And that is so much of a reflection of the core values that everybody on this call has brought and revitalized and given to this program and to this institution and to its commitment to engage in real opportunity, in a commitment to marginal communities, a commitment to social justice, and a commitment to our home in Newark. And so it really is an honor for me to be here with all of you. So I was going to start out by, you know, ranting like I do, but ranting in a good way, right? I was going to like do the, you know, let's hear it for the People's Electric Law School. There we go, People's Electric Law School. Let's hear it for the Rutgers conspiracy, the Slocum Rutgers conspiracy, which is something that I talk about a lot. The whole idea that we're everywhere and we're going everywhere and we're going to be influential everywhere we go. I want to give it up for mi pueblo, my community, my family, and that's all of you here on this call. So thank you. It's wonderful that everybody took the time out for this really wonderful celebration, and that's what it is. I want to you know, really thank several people who put this together. Lenore Pearson, where is she? Can you just say something so everyone can see you, so we can like thank you? Lenore, hello. Nate, Nikal, Dina Font, thank you all for putting this event together. Thank you for your beautiful words, Professor Hyatt, and thank you for the tremendous energy and leadership you brought along with our faculty to putting the statement together. And that is a moment where I knew that we were special, right? I knew we were special. And there was such an overwhelming resolution in our virtual building that we are not moving backwards. We're going to build on what we've done, and we're going to build on the legacy that goes back to 1967 and the commitment to diversity that grew out of the sacrifice and grew out of the work of young African-American students who indicted the law school for failing to live up to its commitment to social justice and to the broader legal profession, and to the administration and the faculty at that time who took a moment to listen and move the program forward and move the law school forward in so many different ways with this wonderful program, the MSP program, which is, I think, now in its 53rd year, but also with the clinical program, which has always been a leader. And one of the things that we did yesterday is we took photographs of this beautiful mural. I don't know, Nate, if you can drop down this mural. This is a mural that we painted for the 50th anniversary that we will have, that also got canceled by the pandemic John, so thank you. But this is a beautiful mural that we have in our clinics celebrating our historical clinical program. And that's absolutely fantastic. So when the building comes back together, please come and look at it. This is really a celebration of the role of our clinics in engaging with the community, and really a leader in what now people are calling anti-racist curriculum, but in many ways it was the original vision for anti-racist curriculum, to work with the community and to work on social justice issues for those without voice. Chancellor Cantor and Professor Boddy both talked about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and we remember her commitment to justice, and we remember her trailblazing leadership. But I have a hypothesis about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And let me tell you what that hypothesis is. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, 25 years after leaving Rutgers, said this about Rutgers Law. She remembered Rutgers Law as a place that, quote, remained steadfast in its commitment to diversity, advancing opportunities for people long left out to aspire and achieve. Remained steadfast in its commitment to diversity and advancing opportunities for people long left out and aspire and achieve. That is how Ruth Bader Ginsburg remembered Rutgers Law School. The story, as we've all heard of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is that she came here as a professor of conflict of law, and some students back in the original People's Electric Law School days, some female students said, "Can you teach a class on women in the law?" And Professor Ginsburg said, "I've not taught that class before, but let me do some research." And as she remembers it, she went to the library and learned very quickly that the historical materials on the law are told from the perspective of men. And so she stood up to the challenge of those students and the challenge of the time, which was the same challenge that we're talking about with this program. She stood up and found a voice, the early voice as a leader in issues of gender equality at Rutgers Law School. And when she talks about the steadfast commitment to diversity and advancing opportunity for people long left out to aspire and achieve, she's talking not only about all of us, she's talking about herself. And she's talking about what the law school gave to her back in the late 60s and the early 70s. And when in dissent in one of the worst Supreme Court cases in recent history, Holder versus Shelby County, which gutted the preclearance provisions of the historic Voting Rights Act, for which John Lewis sacrificed and gave up his body. This is what Justice Ginsburg said from the bench. She reminded posterity that, quote, throwing out preclearance when it has worked and is continuing to work to stop discriminatory changes is like throwing away your umbrella in a rainstorm because you're not getting wet. Powerful words, famous words, and in those words, I hear the echo of our People's Electric Law School, and in those words, I hear the echo of this historic program. And I tell it to our students all the time. There are no imposters here. We want everyone's voice here. We need everyone's voice here. This nation has lost 207,000 people to a horrible virus. That virus has disproportionately preyed on structural racism and disproportionately impacted the American Indian community, the African American community and the Latinx community. It has preyed on racism. 207,000 people lost to what I call the Great Pandemic. And in the midst of this, we witnessed yet another murder by the police of an African American, George Floyd. We witnessed a knee on his neck for nearly 9 minutes. And against the backdrop of this horrible virus that's preying on the community, the great pandemic that is leaving communities of color amplifying economic marginality in our communities, we witnessed that, and over $1.5 million of people across the United States hit the streets, demanding an end. 2020 is the year of not only the great pandemic, 2020 is the year of the great reckoning. And we cannot let up, as you've heard our other speakers say. This program reflects the beauty and richness of the country more than any comparable program across the country. And as we go through the great reckoning, I see my fellow deans scrambling. How do we get more minorities into our class? Oh, we need to hire faculty of color too? All of them struggling to get to where we started to move more than 50 years ago. All of them. This program is at the core of a vision for this country where we don't leave talent on the table, where we use all the talent that we have, and that we use all the voices we have. It's a fundamentally democratic vision. It's a division where our abuelos count, our abuelas count, our kids count, all of us count. It's not a vision based on you only think about what's in your 401k. It's a vision that is reflected in the metaphor of a mask, because when you wear the mask, you're demonstrating your commitment to other people and your commitment to the community. That's the vision that's reflected in the MSP community. It's a vision of America. It's an accomplishment that we love, but we're never going to be complacent about. We're going to build upon. It's a vision of America, but as we move into the 2020 election, we know it's not the only vision of America. And this has led to an enormous amount of foreboding, an enormous amount of anxiety amongst our student body, amongst our students of color in particular, and amongst many of us. But I would ask you all to look at what we have here and what we've accomplished with this MSP program as a model and a vision for where this nation needs to go. Like I said, we're never going to get complacent. We have problems. We make mistakes. I love Chancellor Cantor, reminding all of you, and this is directed to the students, keep our feet to the fire. But we should also be able to celebrate the beauty of this community and what we've accomplished. And I've talked to so many students and faculty from Rutgers Law, and they say one thing about MSP. And if you think about this, it's tremendous. MSP saved my life. MSP changed my life. And that's what we want to celebrate today. And I thank you all. I believe that I'm going to get a couple more minutes to make 3 big announcements later on, right? I'm not going to make them now. I'm going to be able to do that later at the end of the program. But thank you all for joining us today. And remember, as we move forward, keep in contact with each other, build this community. This is our moment. This is a Rutgers moment in a very weird kind of way. This is a moment where the vision that is reflected in this community can be transported broadly and universally to our nation that is suffering right now. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dean Lopez.
I had the great good fortune to serve on the Rutgers faculty from 1963 to 1972. In 1969, several students asked if the school could offer a seminar on women and the law. I headed to the library. There was precious little about women's place in a world where all doers and actors were male. Rutgers students sparked my interest and aided in charting the course I then pursued. Less than 3 years after starting the seminar, I was arguing gender discrimination cases before the Supreme Court. Through the years, Rutgers has remained steadfast in its commitment to diversity, advancing opportunities for people long left out to aspire and achieve.
L student Yelki Perez.
Hi, everyone. My name is Yelki Perez, and as Dean Alfred said, I am a 3L, my last semester of law school. I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker. Her name is Shannon Cohol. She's a 2L student and, of course, a member of the MSP family. She's the current president of the Association for Black Law Students and a research fellow at the Rutgers Law School Center for Law and Equality and Metropolitan Equity. Yikes, that took me some practice to remember. Quite a long title. But as if that is not already quite the law, Shannon is also a student member of the Law School Anti-Racist Audit Committee. She completed her undergraduate studies at Cornell University in 2014 with a double major in public health and Africana studies, and then went on to pursue her master's in public health from Washington University in St. Louis. During her 1L summer, she interned for the law department at Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Shannon is originally from Brooklyn, New York. She's the daughter of preachers at for the Lenox Road Baptist Church in Brooklyn. Her upbringings have led to her active involvement in the church, where she manages social media and online communication. I had the pleasure of meeting Shannon last year when she was a 1L student, and most recently worked together with her to assist Dean Alfred with the MSP 2 weeks orientation for the incoming class. Shannon is a bundle of energy, a social justice warrior, and a promising attorney striving not only to advance herself in this field, but her community. We're all excited to see where her talents lend her, and I'm especially grateful to MSP for bringing us together. With that, I introduce you to Shannon, or I'll pass it over to Shannon.
Thank you, Yelki. I appreciate that so much. I feel the love. Thank you to Dean Alfred and to Dean Lopez and to the faculty and staff and administrators who are here. What's up, MSP? Hello, everybody. How you doing? It's good to be here in a Zoom with 116 students, alumni, staff, faculty. I feel energized. I'm in my apartment by myself, but I feel like I'm on campus with you all, so it is good to be here. Dean Alfred asked me to just talk a little bit about the student experience right now and what an experience it is. Being in law school in the year 2020, what a journey. So come with me on my journey through this law school experience. As Yelki said, I am a 2L and I'm the president of the Association of Black Law Students and a member of MSP. So to those that have come before me in ABLS and MSP, first I want to say thank you for making a way for me to be here right now. I appreciate it a lot. So 2020, I think back to specifically March 12th, if I'm not mistaken, was when one of our March 11th or 12th, one of our last days of classes in the spring. You know, we were going on spring break, and the dean sent out an email that said, you know, we're going on spring break. We're not sure what's going to happen with this pandemic. We may be coming back in person, but not yet. And no one knew what was going to happen. I went on spring break, and little did I know, or any of us know, that that would be the last time we would see the school in person for months to come. I didn't know that I would come back from my little trip with my friends down to North Carolina, and we'd be in the middle of a pandemic and one of the most trying times in our society. But that's what happened. March came and went, April came and went, and the pandemic got crazier, and I'm seeing death, confusion, public health issues. And if you know me, I'm from a public health background. So this pandemic was just a lot for me to deal with. And then seeing the numbers going up of Black and brown people disproportionately impacted by this virus. And then, you know, it was hard because we're dealing with the pandemic, but I'm also in law school. And as all the attorneys in here know, law school is rough. Now imagine doing law school in the middle of a pandemic. That is a challenge. We had to learn how to use Zoom, how to use WebEx. Professors had to learn how to mute people and unmute and block the chat and unmute the chat. And it was a lot to deal with. But we got through it. We pressed on. And that's what we do. That's what we do as a people, as Black folk, as people of color. That's what we do. We press on. You know, having to do things in a pandemic. I don't know, those that have come before me, you've been through hard times as well. And so the school year ended in May, and I was thankful for it to be done. My first year of law school started off in person and ended off in my computer on Zoom. I had to do my finals for Civ Pro and property and trying to understand leases and all of that good stuff online, and my internet was going in and out. So it was a struggle, but we pressed on. And I remember, and I thought back to things that my mom and my dad would always tell me about. Do it for the ancestors. Do it for the folks that come before you. Do it for the ones that are coming from behind you. And that has always kept me energized through this journey. When the school year ended, many of us were uncertain. Graduation happened online. Internships got canceled. People who were doing clerkships didn't know what was going to happen. My own internship, they emailed me and said, we're going to send you a computer, then we're not. Then you're coming in, you're not coming in. It was a struggle for all of us. And so to the current students, I'm glad we made it through this summer. And I was reminded this summer, at the end of May, why I came to law school. I come from a family of church folk, Black activists who were always out in the streets. And I always knew that I needed to prepare myself with the tools that would help me to be an even more effective agent of change. And that's why I chose Rutgers Law School. The MSP program specifically is what drew me to this institution. This summer, when George Floyd was killed, and you know, we heard the story of Breonna Taylor's killing and Ahmaud Arbery and others, it was a reminder that even in the midst of a pandemic, we're still fighting racism. We're still having to deal with these issues. You know, everything was on quarantine except for racism and brutality from police and vigilante groups. So it was a rough time for us. And me, who, you know, I protested all the time, but going out during a pandemic was scary. But I was encouraged when Dean Lopez called us the night before when this all happened, and he emailed the school and he was like, there's protests happening. Us as students got together and we said, we're gonna do it because I know I'm scared right now, but I have the courage of those that have come before me that are gonna protect me. And I wore my mask as everyone else did in Newark. We met with each other as students. We went out there that first day of protest. We heard from Candice and other student leaders and Iman, and we went out there and we did what we were called to do. Being a law student, it's just as important to be in the classroom and learn the doctrinal law, but it's also important to be out there in the streets. So we got to do that this summer. You know, as the school year ended, we were unsure. I remember, I think we all were emailing Dean Lopez, like, what's up with the fall? Like, are we going to be in person? Is it online? You know, like, what's happening? And Dean Lopez and every other dean of law schools and universities across the country were faced with this charge of what do we do with this? Because we weren't getting national leadership, so every institution had to do it for themselves. And I'm proud that I was a part of a university that was very cautious during this uncertain time of the pandemic. Rutgers, and particularly Newark, we and our law school decided to do completely online classes. So I started off the school year online this year. Imagine taking 4 classes online, being in student organizations, not being able to see your friends, but we still have to learn, right? And so this fall semester began. You know, professors, I saw Professor Body and Professor Hyatt, 2 of my professors for this year, and kudos to the professors because they had to learn how to do Zoom and WebEx and all of this stuff and lead and teach us over the last couple of weeks. And I honestly got to say that I have learned a lot. It has been difficult. And I look at my fellow students, and every day it's hard for us to get up, come to your computer in your house with distractions, with family, friends, everything else happening. And we still have to do this because I'm looking at the older folks in this Zoom right now who've come before me. I'm doing it for you and for those who are coming behind us. So thank you for giving me the energy to keep on going. This semester started, and the Association of Black Law Students and every other student group was tasked with the challenge of creating community online. Now, that's a hard thing to do. Creating community online is different than in person because in person, you know, you can plan events, you can have happy hours, social gatherings, you can host seminars. Online is a little bit difficult. And we had an incoming class of 1Ls who were now starting off law school online. So myself and fellow organization leaders got together and we started talking about how can we do this? You know, so we were like, we're going to do Zoom parties. We're going to do, you know, virtual happy hours. We're going to still have lunch sessions. We're going to have our things. And we planned and we promoted and we got excited. And the first event that ABLS had this past year, we were Zoom bombed.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and I was reminded, and my fellow ABLS members were reminded that even in a virtual reality, racism is still here, and it will rear its head any kind of way. But that didn't stop us. We were reminded that we got to keep going. We do this for ourselves, and we were determined to make an environment for the 1Ls work. So we got rid of the Zoom bombers. There's an investigation happening with our school in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Our school was there to support us, and we pressed on. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, you know, we've learned how to be an online but also communal law school. And I'm thankful to the MSP organization for that as well. This summer when myself and Yelke were the TAs with Dean Alfond for an online MSP orientation, we had to work through those issues. And I gotta tell you, the 1L seemed to be closer than some of us who were in person, even though some of them have never met each other in person. But that's the beauty of this organization. We are still able to create community, to empower, to support, and uplift each other. And so I just want to say on behalf of the students that you don't got to worry about the upcoming generations. We're going to keep going. We're going to become great attorneys, whether we're in private practice, whether we're in the government, whether we're in public interest. We're going to keep on the fight that you all started for us to make this world a better place for our community and those to come. I'm a firm believer. I'm a Christian, and so I think back to the story of Esther and how she was brought to the kingdom for such a time as this. And I think that it's interesting that my class year, the class of 2022, 2021, and 2023 and 24 were brought to the law school for such a time as this. So we're going to keep on the fight. We're going to keep on learning. Professor Body told us that we got to pause, reflect, and re-energize ourselves, and we're going to keep going. So thank you for having us. I'm excited to keep going. I appreciate the alums, and I'm so proud to be a part of this organization that stands for social justice and equity as a future attorney. Thank you all.
Okay, let's cheer.
Woo!
Thank you, Shannon. Now would be a good time to ask for everyone to tithe, but I'm not going to do that. Dr. Campbell.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Really glad, to see all of you here present, albeit virtually too, to our ABLS President Shannon, who has taken the organization that was built on the backs of the community in Newark, and also the Black students who came to Rutgers Law. It's good to see her continuing the great work. I'm here to speak about Dean Yvette Bravo-Weber, our most recent outgoing MSP Dean, our longest serving MSP Dean, if I remember correctly. Although she can't be here with us, her energy and her legacy stays with us. So my first conversation with Dean Bravo-Weber, it wasn't about law school. It wasn't about the minority student program. It wasn't even about anything legal. Instead, we spoke about our experiences as educators. Now, as a former educator myself, we bonded over the experiences we had with our students and the memories those experiences created and instilled in us. In many ways, Dean Bravo-Weber never stopped having a teacher's mindset when she came to Rutgers Law. As it is with all good educators, she never allowed institutional politics to distract her from doing what all great educators do, which is center students. It was not uncommon for students to walk into Dean Bravo-Weber's office with dry eyes and walk out with hugs and a tissue. And that was because we could lay all of our issues, good and bad, professional and personal, on her desk and in her lap. We could be vulnerable with her, and we could walk out of her office stronger than we were when we came into her office. Now, there are a few people I've encountered in my 36 years, short but 36 nevertheless, few people I've encountered who could empathize with our challenges as law students, provide us with a space to cry, laugh, listen to stern and yet caring words, and leave with practical advice on how to move forward in this environment that was designed, that wasn't designed for us. And that was one of the most tremendous gifts she gave to this law school, and one of the most lasting memories she left with her students. Those who walked through the People's Electric Law School witnessed that this is indeed a special place. A part of that is because we are nestled in a city carved out of struggle. But the other part of that is that there were individuals like Dean Bravo-Weber who have walked through its glass doors and represented the very best of what this law school puts out, its students. Dean Bravo-Weber played a key role in shaping the minds and, most importantly, the hearts of the students fortunate enough to be led by her. And as I said before, while she cannot be here with us, her energy and her influence will live through her students in the indelible mark she left in all of our lives. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. I should note that Dr. Campbell is another one of our, and we're proud of him, another one of our 3L students. I heard from Dean Bravo-Weber. She so wanted to be here with us this evening. She lost, unfortunately. She just suffered a tragic loss of her lifetime best friend and had to be with their family. But she wanted me to send her love to all of you, and you know you have a special place in her heart. I wonder if I can ask my dean, Dean Oliver Quinn, to come to the podium, so to speak, the virtual podium. Dean Quinn.
Thank you. It really is an honor to be here and a pleasure. These MSP gatherings always feel like coming home, and I appreciate the opportunity to see people who were students with me, and very importantly, those of you who were my students during the 4 years that I had the honor to lead the minority student program. It was without a doubt the most gratifying position that I held in my entire career. I want to thank one of my former students, Charles Alfred, for stepping up and leading the minority student program during these very challenging times. That's what we expect of each other. And Charlie is doing an amazing job. So thank you, Charlie, for doing that. I have the microphone this evening specifically to talk about an initiative that we started this year in honor of Professor Al Slocum. Many of us studied under Professor Slocum, were mentored by Professor Slocum, were humbled by Professor Slocum, and those of you who did not have the Al Slocum experience really don't know what you missed. But in my view, MSP and Rutgers Law School are Al Slocum. Al Slocum was the driving force behind so much that has become Rutgers Law School in Newark. He passed away almost 2 years ago, and we struggled to come up with appropriate ways to honor him. As was mentioned earlier, I think Dean Lopez is the Professor Alfred Slocum Scholar, and he wears that mantle with distinction. And we are very pleased to have Dean Lopez and to have Dean Lopez be the Al Slocum Scholar. But we wanted to do more. And so we came up with we thought about what is it that students need besides good teaching, particularly during the summers. And they need two things. They need experience and they need money. And so we tried to come up with a way of addressing both of those things and in a manner that would reflect Al Slocum. And what we came up with is what we're calling the Professor Alfred Slocum Social Justice Interns Program. Internships are important. You heard earlier about the fact that some students lost their internships over the summer, and that's a devastating occurrence. We wanted to provide students with internships specifically in the social justice arena, not because corporate law and law firm law and other types of law are not important, but because those arenas have resources to pay for interns. Many social justice organizations, most, don't have the resources to pay for interns. And so we created, with the assistance of Rob Steinbaum, who's the Associate Dean for Advancement, Irene O'Brien, who's the Associate Chancellor, Vice Chancellor for Advancement, Dean Lopez, and a number of alums. We created this fund to support students doing internships in social justice organizations. We launched it this summer with 2 interns who worked at the New Jersey Institute for Social Justice in Newark. One was a rising 2L and one is a rising 3L. And they had amazing experiences in research and writing on issues like voting rights, implications of COVID-19, issues related to recording police officers' behaviors, a range of social justice issues. They came out of it with solid writing samples as well as substantive legal experience that they will carry forward. Now, we do not want the Slocum Fund to be a one-hit deal. So what we're asking for is, for those of you who want to support it, to make 5-year commitments at whatever dollar amount you can afford. Professor Alfred will put up a link that you can connect to if you want to make contributions. But if we can get 5-year commitments, then we can sustain this fund and continue to build it. While we placed 2 interns at the Institute for Social Justice this year, our goal is to raise enough money that we can place interns during the summer in a number of social justice organizations. like the Center for Constitutional Rights and others, both in the New York, New Jersey area and across the country, because we draw students from across the country. We believe that this is a fitting memorial for Professor Slocum. We think it speaks to his view that we become lawyers not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of others. We think that it opens up opportunities for law students to work in social justice organizations, getting serious, solid legal experience. And so we hope that you will, to the extent that you can, support this initiative so that we can continue to grow it and provide meaningful summer experiences for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Quinn. I wonder if I could ask our former MSP deans to just say hello. You've heard from Oliver Quinn. Is Dean Robinson here?
I am here. Dean Lopez, the Chancellor, everybody. This is amazing. Do I have at least 1 minute? Because I am so happy to be here. It's simply wonderful. And Shannon, you've made my heart feel great because it's clear that you are carrying it on with your energy and your work and your efforts. I was the MSP Dean between 1986 and 1996, and that's when the baton in 86 was passed to me. I have to tell you, I was completely frightened because I had Oliver Quinn, I had Wade Henderson, I had Al Slocum, all there. I want to say breathing down my neck, but that's not quite true, being mentors, but just, I think, making sure that this non-Rutgers Law School person didn't screw it up. And I just wanted to say a big thank you to them. I'm extraordinarily proud of each of you. And of course, particularly my folk from those 10 years, but all of you. And to know that you have been making your ways individually and collectively, and that you've contributed to this world and to this society and to your neighborhoods and to your families, and that you've been doing this through all of life's challenges, the illnesses, the births, the deaths, the struggles, the financial issues, but yet you've stayed true to what this law school has given you, and then have turned around and given it forward. And I know many of you are giving it back. But you keep showing up, and it's so wonderful to see you. And you just keep showing up and you keep doing the work. And I just wanted to say bless you for that. And like Oliver, I've come to the stage in my life where this was the best job I ever had, was being the MSP Dean. There's no two ways about it. So thank you. Thank you for that.
Here, Dean Robinson.
Thank you, Dean Robinson. Is Vice Chancellor, but more importantly, former MSP Dean Marcia Brown here?
Hi, everyone. How are you doing? I'm so delighted to be here to celebrate the 52nd anniversary of the MSP program. I can only say I wish I was turning 52 today. But, what a whirlwind history connected to this program, and history, the trajectory really of social justice, and the great people who came through here. I wouldn't even start to name them, but I see that not only do we have the notorious RBG, we also have the notorious Shannon. And so, you know, this is going to be an amazing experience with these young people here. I'm going to be brief and just say that we need the People's Electric Law School more than ever now. And so I congratulate Dean Lopez and the faculty and the students for staying on this caravan and for their long years of leadership, and also my fellow MSP deans who have stayed the course, been with the program, have not left. As I particularly want to highlight my mentors, Janice Robinson and Oliver Quinn and Wade Henderson, and of course the notorious L. Slocum, who admitted me. And yes, I was a beneficiary of a few of those slaps, Oliver. But these may be the times that try our soul. I mean, and they really are. But thank goodness the law school is still here, and the MSP, which is the crown jewels, are still here as well. So I would just say to everybody, stay lifted.
Thank you, Dean Brown. Dean and now Professor Ronald Chen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dean Alfont. I guess if they ever do a special Trivial Pursuits for Rutgers Law School, one of them would be ask this trivial question. I actually was the interim MSP dean briefly. It may not be the role I'm most known for, but I was once very briefly when Jan Robinson had a well-deserved sabbatical in Europe, and then for a somewhat longer time, a little later, when there was a interim, I think before Ken Padilla became the MSP dean. So if it gives me an excuse to give you all greetings, that's wonderful. All I can say is simply, I really need this right now to get recharged like this at a time when I think a lot of us are feeling the weight of some of our troubled times, to be able to come back and engage in this mutual energization, to watch Shannon, who survived my contracts course last year, and look how well she's emerged from that. It is just it's a wonderful thing. The law school needs MSP more than ever. Frankly, our nation needs MSP more than ever. And it's just my great, one of the great joys of my life that I've been able to be associated with all of you, first as a proud graduate of the MSP, then as a professor, briefly as dean, and now back on the faculty. Just keep with it. I always point out, I also, my predecessors, Oliver Quinn, who as I always noted, it's his fault I'm here, because he admitted me to this law school, and Jan and Marcia, another survivor of my contracts course. It's a very proud legacy that I'm part of, and I'm just seeing so many friends and colleagues on the participant list. I got to tell you, this is really energizing me at a time when a lot of us need that energy. So best wishes, hope and love to all of you.
Thank you, Ron. Dean Ken Padilla.
Dean Alfont and Dean Lopez, thank you. And yes, I was also a survivor of Professor Chen's contract class, but I will never let him live him down that he ruined my transcript with that grade. But, 40-page exam with 40 multiple choice with, yeah. Anyway, I've gotten over that. I do want to sincerely thank my dean, Dean Janice Robinson, not only for admitting me into the law school, but also teaching me about all the different types of wines and when to drink them and what to drink them with. But most importantly, I want to thank her for, along with Professor Slocum, instilling me with the spirit of MSP. It is because of her and Slocum that I knew when I graduated in '95 that someday I would come back to be MSP Dean. And so in 2001, when my fellow classman Nelson Perez called me to say, hey, the position is open, I knew I was going to do that. But little did I know when I took the position, and 5 years later, as Oliver Quinn has said, as Jan Robinson has said, that was the best and most rewarding position I've ever done. And it is a very humbling thing to see an applicant on paper, to them being admitted, to see them grow and be the most amazing people so many years later. And not only did I benefit from MSP as a student, but I benefited from MSP as a dean. And I agree with Ron, this is something I needed more than anything nowadays. For those who know where I work, I need this. right? Keeps me grounded, lets me know that people are out there. And one of the most humbling things about being dean is that I got to contribute to Slocum's Army for Justice. And so I don't want anyone to ever forget, you're part of a much larger army, a much larger family who's here to support you and help you and make sure that you're able to be successful in your lives. It never stops, it never ends, and we're always here. So those who are in law school right now, good luck, and realize that we're here to take care of you.
Thank you, Dean Padilla. Sorry for that misstep, folks. I want to let you know that we're going to end this evening. The deans have, former deans, MSP deans have agreed to stick around and spend some time with you in breakout rooms. But now, that didn't work too well.
Uh-oh.
Dean Lopez, you got to share the sound too.
Dean Lopez or Dean?
Dean
I
Alfond.
think that's Dean Alfond that's sharing it. Okay.
And Ms. Cohol, you got to tell me how I have to do that.
Go to new share at the top and click on the screen you want to share. And then on the bottom of the share screen, it should say share computer audio.
New share, okay. Thank you.
Branch was supreme. The fourth branch were the people.
Let me run that once more and then end it. This is why I had to have Ms. Cohol help me.
Can you also maximize the screen?
Thomas Jefferson used to always say, the people who were writing the Constitution, there are not just three branches of government, the executive, the judicial, and the legislature. There were four branches. And the fourth branch was supreme. The fourth branch were the people.
I wonder if, well, bear with me one second. Now you see why I had to have Ms. Perez and Ms. Cohol assist me during the MSP orientation. So our last speaker tonight, and I'm not going to spend time reading a long introduction because we'd be here all night. But Wade Henderson has devoted his entire life to the struggle for justice. He recently retired, or so he claims, as the director of the Leadership Conference for Civil Rights. He has acted as a foot soldier for justice, and for us, most importantly, he was one of our early MSP deans. With no further ado, I'd ask Wade Henderson to step up and give us some words.
Let's see. Thank you, Professor Alfond. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As the professor said, I'm Wade Henderson. I'm a Rutgers graduate of the class of 1973, and I was the first dean and Assistant Dean and Director of the MSP program. It is a particular honor and privilege to be here this evening with all of you. I can't begin to tell you what an extraordinary out-of-body experience this has been for me. First, I want to thank Ms. Cohol and Ms. Perez for grounding us in the current involvement of students at Rutgers. You inspire us. We look at you and we see ourselves when we were students, and it's a great honor to meet you even virtually. Secondly, I can't begin to tell you how incredible it is to have had a life experience that has brought me in contact with every leader on this call in one capacity or another. Chancellor Nancy Cantor was a force in urban education long before she came to Rutgers. I had the privilege of knowing her in several capacities, and she has fulfilled every expectation that we and her colleagues have had for her tenure here at Rutgers Newark. To Dean Lopez, who has already been properly introduced, but having had the experience of working with Dean Lopez when he was general counsel at the EEOC, makes me especially honored to be able to salute him this evening, both in his capacity as dean, but also as the Alfred Slocum Professor of Law here at Rutgers. To Professor and Acting Dean Alfred. I was not in school when Charlie was a student, although I can assure you his reputation preceded him, and he too, by virtue of his work with the clinics, has demonstrated more leadership and capacity than, he certainly fulfilled every expectation. And then I happen to know several faculty members. Elise Boddy, I worked with when she was an attorney at LDF, and boy, has she brought something powerful to this law school. Narenda Hyatt was a fellow faculty member at the UDC Law School with me for several years, and I know what she has meant to Rutgers because I know what she meant when we lost her at UDC. To John Dubin, who talked about our work together at the ACLU, how incredible that has been, and then all the assistant deans who have been mentioned. Now, the one thing I won't do tonight is to try to salute the incredible graduates who are on this phone call, all of who are doing extraordinary work. But I have to mention two who were in school during my period, and I want to acknowledge them. One is Patricia Darden, who is on the call. I know at one point she was a mayor in Camden, New Jersey. I know that my friend Victor McTeer, one of the great civil rights trial lawyers and of our time, is from Mississippi, is here. And again, Oliver Quinn, he's been introduced. Bernard Freeman, a professor at another law school. I so admire Bernie, and Ron Stroman and Ron Chen. But guys, I'm already in trouble, so I'll stop. I apologize. I want to take 1 minute, though, and take us back to the origins of this program, because it really does have an impact on where we are today. So I want you to go back in your mind to 1967 in Newark, New Jersey. Newark was one of 159 cities that experienced urban disturbances in the long, hot summer of 1967. But Newark's experience was unlike many because it was far more devastating at the time and in its long-term impact on the city as a whole. 26 people were killed over 4 days in Newark. Over 700 people were injured. Over 1,400 individuals were arrested. It was sparked, much like the events of today, by an encounter between the police department and a Black man, a resident of Newark, and it resulted in catastrophic devastation. The urban disturbance of that summer helped to spur further mass migration of a white middle class from Newark. Newark in 1967 was already a majority Black community, but had a largely white and sometimes hostile municipal leadership. And that was the circumstance out of which the Rutgers Minority Student Program was born. We were the progeny between a conflict, between a demand for systemic change and social justice and the sclerotic preservation of the status quo. And Rutgers Law School had a decision to make about how it would respond to those moments. And fortunately, there was a faculty there who saw its role as bigger than it had traditionally been in simply being a mill for pumping out attorneys who would engage largely in local work. Rutgers saw itself as having a national agenda, and it pursued that national agenda initially through the creation of the Minority Student Program. Now, I won't tell you the faculty members who were there and so much involved. You just saw a picture of Arthur Kanoy, who was certainly among them, Alfred Slocum, who had been a student of Arthur's and who had helped introduce the change to the law school, and then members of the faculty whose names you probably don't know. The great Willard Heckel, who was the dean of the law school at the time, or Alfred Blumrosen, one of the fathers of Title VII in the Civil Rights Act, or Anna Mae Shepherd, who envisioned the creation of an urban clinic, one of the first in the country since the early 30s to provide service and support. It was in that firmament that Rutgers was born. So as I look out at the over 119 people who were on this call, I see you as the progeny of that effort. You are the tools for social change, and you have pursued that change in significant, impactful ways, in ways that go far beyond what any creator of this program would have had the right to expect. So, you stand for the proposition that law can be a constructive tool for social change. It does not have to be simply a defender of the status quo. You are more than a trade. We are an element that knows how to use the Constitution, the statutes, the political involvement of many of us who serve in elective office and the advocacy community to create an atmosphere for change. And that's what this law school, by way of this program, has done. So it's a special privilege and honor for me to be here tonight to see that. Now I'm going to leave you with two very brief thoughts. There is not a perfect comparison, but there is an analogy between events of today and the events of 50 years ago when I started Rutgers Law School. There is a bit of a comparison that can't be ignored. I talked about the spark that set off the Newark disturbance, the arrest and assault of a Black man by a police officer. And you think about the death of George Floyd or Breonna Taylor and the whole birth and high profile of the Black Lives Matter movement of today. The same demand for change and the same need for tools to help facilitate that change are as present now as they were when I started law school. And each of you, in whatever career you have chosen to pursue, has a real impact on helping to fulfill that mission. It doesn't have to be in a job explicitly identified as one for social justice. It can be in corporations, it can be in a variety of different ways. And so I want to talk for a moment of why that's so important, but I'll end it quickly, Professor Alfant, by simply saying, look, I want you to look around and look at activities that help to further the goal that we share in common, but that you can do by virtue of who you are and wherever you may be. And I'll give you just two brief examples. Professor Alfant mentioned I left my position as president of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. It's the nation's premier civil and human rights coalition. We had over 200 national organizations working to advance the goal of civil and human rights. We called it working to build an America as good as its ideals. And I was privileged to head that organization for 20 years. One thing I learned is that coalition politics is the politics of the 21st century. If you're not working in coalition to pursue social change, you're not pursuing a strategy that will prevail. Secondly, as I said, you can do a lot of different things. I'm working now on a couple of things that I want to share with you because in a couple of instances, we could use support. Just as an example, corporate lawyers often pursue both litigation and amicus work. I know that Elise Body could talk for days about a lawsuit that's been filed against the State Department of Education for the failure to provide equal education to Black and Latino students primarily, but others as well. Something that's important for us to note, and private law firms are leading the way. I'm working with a law firm in DC on an amicus brief in a case soon to be filed called Black Lives Matter versus Trump. And we need to have voices of the civil rights leadership speaking to issues of today based on what we did previously. And lastly, two issues that I'm working on that are very important to me personally. One is HCON Res 100, which would establish a national commission on truth, racial healing, and transformation. It has approximately 160 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives, and it's likely to be an issue in the next Congress. And the second is HR 40, which would establish a national commission to study reparations on behalf of African Americans. That too has about 160 co-sponsors. We're going to need support and advocates to help push those over the line in the new Congress, regardless of who is elected president or the outcome of the Senate and House elections, and we'd like your help in doing it. So I will close, Professor, by only mentioning two things. My friend Oliver Quinn talked about the importance of support for the Alfred Slocum internship program here at the law school. Now, you know I couldn't have joined today's program if I had not made my contribution. So yesterday, colleagues, I made my donation to the program so I can speak with some degree of standing and hopefully encourage all of you to take a look at making a donation for that program, which has such potential to provide sources for change in the future. And lastly is this. I know our friend attorney Miguel Alexander Pozo talked about the Honorable Esther Salas and the difficult experience that we know she had this past summer. It was an outrageous act that can only, it was just unbelievably cruel. There is a GoFundMe page that's been established on behalf of her husband. And I would encourage you all to take a look at making a donation. That family really needs support and assistance, and it would only be appropriate for the Rutgers MSP alumni to help support that initiative. So with that, Professor Alfont, I return the podium to you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and it's so great to see everyone here. And thanks, Ms. Cohol, I appreciate it, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Henderson. We're humbled by your service. Before we go into breakout rooms, I'd ask Dean Lopez to come forward once more. Dean Lopez has an announcement.
I have three announcements. The rule of three. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Wade. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your remarks. Thank you also to Oliver Quinn for the Slocum summer internship program. It's an outstanding program. And I know that our students who were at the New Jersey Institute of Social Justice, an outstanding organization, had a great experience and learned a lot. And the gift and the initiative are what this program is all about. So I really appreciate that. And we've put the link in the chat. So all of you, look at the link. I will always say as the dean, look for a way to give back. It could be money, it could be time, it could be love, or all three. But we'll put the link in the chat. 3 announcements. First, this fall, Juan Cartagena, who is the president and general counsel of Latino Justice and a nationally known civil rights figure, will be honored as the distinguished Peter Rodino visiting professor at Rutgers Law School. And he will be here working with us on some civil rights projects and also teaching a course, Latinos in the Law. And I know, Wade, that Juan Cartagena. He is he's a national voice on so many civil rights issues, and to have him on campus and working with our students is just a tremendous, tremendous honor. Second, I want to announce two incredible gifts. First, my friend who worked with me on this Southern program that we never were able to land because of the pandemic, but it was just really, it's been one of my joys during my time at the law school to work with Victor McTeer on that program and to get to know him, to learn so much from him, to argue from him. But I will say that Victor McTeer, a graduate in the second MSP class and the speaker at last year's banquet, and his wife Mercedes have just established 2 summer internships for MSP students to work for the Center for Constitutional Rights in the new Southern office in Jackson, Mississippi. In addition to providing valuable career experience for the students, the Victor McTeer social justice internships will cement the strong relationship between CCR, headed by MSP alumni Vince Warren, class of '93. I did not see Vince on this call, but we all know he is another amazing voice on human rights in this country, with Danita Judge, class of 2003 as the assistant director. Thank you, Victor and Dee Dee. Take a bow, Victor. Thank you so much. And it's always good to see you. Thank you so much. That's not all. The Rasul family, and I think Nia just signed off, so I wanted to catch her. But the Rasul family, which is comprised of 2 generations of MSP alumni, starting with Tim in 1992, and 2 daughters, who many of you know, Nia and Jasmine. Nia's class of 2005, Jasmine's class of 2014, have agreed to fund the Rasul Family Social Justice Internship on the model of Slocum and McTeer funds for another MSP student to spend the summer following his or her 2L year working at a public service organization and receiving a $5,000 stipend for the summer. This will start this summer and many to come. So thank you to the Rasul family, Tim, Nia, and Jasmine. These are outstanding gifts, and they really do make a big difference for our students and make a big difference in terms of opening up opportunities and pursuing the fight for social justice. I can't be more proud to be able to announce those gifts this evening at this incredible event. So I think we're going to all move off into, I don't know, let me just make sure. Is there anybody from the Rasul family still here? Oh man, okay. So I think we're going to move off into the party, the Zoom party. And so hopefully we'll all be able to chat. Do you have anything to say, Professor Font? Thank you for all your work in putting this tremendous program together.
Thank you all for coming. Here's our plans for the rest of the evening. We are going to break out into breakout rooms. We're going to put you in, we're going to combine you based on the years you graduated. I don't know, Ron Chen graduated so long ago. I'm not sure if, but that's a whole different story. We're going to put you in years you graduated in. We're going to have MSP deans come and speak to you. So please hang around, see some old friends, talk to your old deans. I know Kenny wants to talk about that contract grade some more, but let it go, Ken. One last thing. Thank you so much to everybody who made these tremendous gifts to the law school. not all of us can be that generous, but there are things we can do. We love to have you come back and speak to 1Ls. I'm going to be reaching out to you to mentor a 1L student. I'm going to be looking to get more summer internship programs. So if you're at a firm or a government agency and that's something you may be able to do, that'll be great. So I hope you'll stick around for a while in the breakout rooms. We'll talk about that further, meet some old friends. And Nate, could you put us in breakout rooms? Thanks everyone for coming. It was great to see you. Hang in there. These are hard times. Family is here.